Hey, what is up, you guys? Today I'm going to be talking about all the drugs I have done. I guess I'll start. Whoa, that was weird. Start in the beginning of my drug use. So, first off, we got nicotine. 8th grade, all the cool kids were using their sick ass vapes. They were telling me, how it's not addictive and it can't hurt you and it doesn't give you cancer like cigarettes and it tastes good and it doesn't hurt your throat and shit. And I was like, well, fuck, it sounds pretty damn good, right? Gave it a shot. Really liked it. And back then everyone was doing like zero nicotine. But then towards like over that summer and towards like the start of freshman year, everyone was moving from like their mods and shit to pod systems. Like they all had Juuls and whatever, and they were all using nicotine. And I started using nicotine because my friends were like, "Oh, dude, it's so good," or whatever. Because I was like before any of us really did any real drugs. And that was like the first thing I did that really changed how I felt. And so then at that point I had my own, and I started buying nicotine like juice for it because before I was just running zero. I actually bought a whole new system just because my mod wasn't that good for nicotine. And then I guess freshman year is when I kind of became addicted to nicotine, which is pretty fucked up, like such a young age. But it's kind of hard to explain. It was like I was addicted to it, but I didn't really like it that much. Like I would sit in school freshman year, like towards the beginning, towards the end I completely quit using it. But in like the beginning of freshman year, I would sit in school all day just thinking about going home and vaping and getting my buzz. And I would go, get buzzed, whatever, feel good for like 10 minutes or like 5 minutes. And it would go away and I would be like, well, fuck, that wasn't even that good. And then I would just do it again. It was kind of like a crazy, kind of like a vicious cycle. I would just vape like every 10 minutes a shit ton to get a fat buzz, and it would go away, and I would do it again, and I would go through my juice so fast, and I didn't even really like doing it, but I like couldn't stop myself from doing it. I would spend all my money on it, because back then I wasn't even making very much money, or like didn't have very much. I wasn't really making any. It was just allowance. But I would spend it all on vape juice, like vape shit, and I was completely addicted. It was pretty fucked up for such a young age to be using nicotine so much. It's kind of hard to explain how the cycle is. I couldn't make a whole like in-depth video on nicotine and like my addiction and like sorry, I got distracted there for a second. And like my experience with it, but I'm not going to go too much further into that. But I may go more in depth on that later. So next up we have weed, which it was pretty great. So I started using pot in freshman year, right before Christmas break. I actually remember like in detail. It was like December 13th, the first time I smoked. This is kind of fucking funny. I remember that date, but I do. And basically like a few months after I started smoking, I completely stopped vaping. And the reason I actually got into smoking is because like all my friends started and they were like, "Oh, it's so much better than vaping. Like it's so great. You gotta try it. Fucking vaping isn't like sucks now." And I was like, "Okay," because that's how I felt too. I was like, "Well, fuck, vaping is not like making me feel that good anymore. Like it didn't, change how I felt that much because I was so used to it." And because it's really not, it doesn't change how you feel that much. And so this kind of uh like the gateway you always hear about, you start with something, you go to something like harder, more intense. But this is kind of where it ended for me. Like I obviously started doing other drugs, but it wasn't because weed wasn't good enough or whatever. I was still completely satisfied with it. And like I would always go back to it, but like here's kind of where my nicotine phase, I guess I'll call it, ended, and it was more just smoking weed. And I was still using nicotine when I was only smoking weed occasionally, but when it became like an everyday thing, like further into freshman year, more towards the end, then that's when I actually completely cut out nicotine. So I'd say weed kind of helped me in that way, you know, because it was just recreational, but I guess that really did help me. It also helped me sleep, because I have insomnia, like I can't fucking sleep for shit. That's why my sleep schedule is always usually fucked up. But I guess that is kind of my weed experience. I'll also probably go more in depth on all these topics, so I'm just gonna stop saying that now. But you know, I very, very rarely smoke now. I pretty much completely stopped for reasons that like if I could still smoke, I definitely would, but I'm being drug tested now. So I mean, that's like the only reason I stopped. Then I guess next up on the list would be alcohol. My first experience, or I guess the reason I started was because one time I didn't have bud for like the fattest minute, and I would smoke every day, and this is like in the like everyday stoner phase, I guess I'll call it, like the peak of my weed phase. And so I wasn't using nicotine at all, so I had nothing to really have. So I stole some alcohol from my parents, some whiskey, and I drank a fucking shit ton of it, way too much, because I'd only really done, you know, like nicotine and weed, which are things like I guess you won't smoke nicotine. I mean, you can, but I always vaped it. But you know, things you inhale, you feel pretty much immediately, because the way it goes to your lungs, and then you know your oxygen or your blood cells pick it up and take it to your brain, into your body pretty damn instantly, like pretty fast. But alcohol is different because you like your liver breaks it down, and it's just like goes through your body differently. So I like thought it would be more instant, like drunkenness, like that, because I really didn't research it at all. And I drank way too much and got really fucked up, but it was a super like fun time. I really liked it. But then after that, I just went back to smoking. I didn't really drink that much because like none of my friends really drank a lot, or at least I didn't talk about it, because it was kind of like not socially acceptable in my school. I guess everyone was more into smoking, at least at that age. Like now, or like everyone's drinking. So it was kind of weird the way it progressed. It was like everyone vaped, but they weren't cool with weed, and then everyone was cool with weed and nothing else, and now everyone doesn't give a shit about anything, in my group at least. But yeah, did have like, I want to say alcohol addiction, but I was like on the very edge, like very, very close to being there, going through a really rough uh like time in my life, horrible breakup. It was pretty fucked. But I think the only reason I didn't get like heavily addicted to alcohol, really, I don't even really want to say I was addicted, because like I guess that wouldn't be 100% true addiction. But I could talk more about that later, like I will with the other things. But I guess that leads into the next one. I guess they all kind of lead to the next, which kind of sounds fucked up, like it's a gateway situation, but I would say it really wasn't. Now, mushrooms I had used in the time that I was drinking, not during like my heavy alcohol drinking, but I had um, used mushrooms a few times, and I was like pretty like kind of depressed, drinking a lot, like way too much, few times, like 3 a week, and it was kind of like I was just pushing people away. You know, alcohol kind of took priority in my life over anything else, like skating or hanging out with friends, or like my relationships, or just playing like games or whatever, because like I do that a lot. It was kind of fucked up, and I heard that this dude had mushrooms, and the way I had tried mushrooms before is I actually really wanted to try them, so I like seeked them out, and I actually went and I found them myself, because I knew that there were certain types in my area. I identified them. I wouldn't recommend doing this. The only reason I did is because like I had no way to buy them, and that's still like a bad reason to do it. And I was 100% sure I had identified them correctly, don't just find any mushroom, take a glance at it and eat it. You have to like really do your research, figure out what it is before you eat it. And that goes for anything too, like drugs. But then um I heard that this dude was selling them, and I was like, okay, so I did it, and I guess that was like my second experience with it, because the first time was once I had found. But that really got me out of that place I was stuck in, as far as, I was really feeling down, I was like depressed, going through this hard breakup, and it really got me through that phase of using alcohol so often and being like so kind of depressed, I would say. And I would say without shrooms, I'd probably be in a much different situation right now. My parents probably would have found out I was drinking. I'd probably be in a different school, because my parents, after I got caught smoking weed, said if I did anything else, they would move me schools. I'd probably have no friends, because I wouldn't have even made an effort probably to make friends at the school they were sending me to. I would still probably be depressed and just really fucked up. And I would say that is probably why I appreciate mushrooms so much, because they really got me out of a bad place in my life. And I will go more into detail on this subject as well in the later video. I definitely will, and kind of more in depth elaborate on how they helped me instead of just saying like they did. So stay tuned for that. I feel like that's a video I really need to make, to tell people about. But that is everything I've tried. That wraps it all up. That is all my drug, well, not all my drug experiences, but all the drugs I've done. Hope you enjoy. I would say stay away from anything besides weed. And if you're gonna do psychedelics, I'm gonna say this: know what you're going into, because this experience is not for the lighthearted. I'll tell you that right now. And you have to be prepared for what it's gonna show you, because it doesn't show you what you want to see. It shows you what you need to see. You usually don't want to see what you need to see, and it can be pretty hard to receive the message it's giving you. But it's definitely, a message that you're going to want to hear and give some thought to and consider what it is telling you. So if you're going to do psychedelics, don't take my word for it. Don't take anyone's word for it. Do the research yourself. Figure out, if it's something you really want to do. And then I would say, if you're in a place where you're ready to do it, go for it. But I'll leave you with that. I want to pass on my knowledge to you guys, so you don't fuck yourself up too bad. And that's all I have to say on this topic. Let's catch you guys later.